Adelaide of Normandy was born into a world brimming with power, intrigue, and political ambition. The early years of her life were shaped by her proximity to two of the most influential monarchs of medieval Europe, her father, Henry I of England, and her brother, William the Conqueror. From her birth in the late 11th century, Adelaide found herself in the heart of royal dynasties, surrounded by the complex webs of European politics that would come to define much of her life. Her father, Henry I, was the youngest son of William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, who famously conquered England in 1066. Henry's reign was marked by struggles to consolidate power in the English court, especially in light of his brother's death, William II, which left him to navigate both internal strife and external threats. The English throne, fragile and fiercely contested, would shape Adelaide's early childhood. Her mother, Edith of Wessex, was of Anglo-Saxon royal blood, the daughter of King Edgar the Peaceful and granddaughter of King Athelred the Unready. This connection to English royalty meant that Adelaide's lineage was of significant importance in the eyes of her contemporaries. Raised in the lavish courts of Normandy and England, Adelaide was accustomed to the complex rituals of royal life. Yet, for all the grandeur, her life was far from simple. As a young girl, Adelaide was trained in the art of diplomacy and court etiquette. She grew up alongside her brothers, observing the subtle power plays that unfolded daily in the royal halls. However, Adelaide's life was not solely confined to these courts. Her early education was likely filled with instruction in languages, literature, and music, skills that would prove invaluable as she grew older and found herself negotiating complex political relationships. By the time she reached adolescence, the political landscape of Europe had shifted. The Crusades were taking shape in the distant East, and the Norman legacy in both England and France was more entrenched than ever. Normandy, while still a powerful duchy, found itself intertwined with the growing ambitions of the Byzantine Empire and the Muslim world, as well as the fracturing influence of various European states. The royal marriage market, particularly for someone of Adelaide's status, was an intricate matter of both personal choice and political necessity. Marriages were not just unions of love but also tools of power. A well-placed marriage could solidify alliances, extend a ruler's reach, and elevate a family's position. Adelaide, being of noble birth, had many suitors who sought her hand in marriage, each with their own designs on her future. But there was one match that stood above the others, a marriage that would forever alter the course of her life and that of southern Italy. At the age of 18, Adelaide's fate would be sealed with an alliance to Roger II, the son of Roger I of Sicily. Roger I had long been a key figure in the Norman conquest of southern Italy, and his ambitions were grand. He had secured the island of Sicily and established a powerful base there. However, it was Roger II who would rise to become the first king of a united Sicily, and Adelaide would play a crucial part in this transformation. The proposal for Adelaide's marriage to Roger II was not just a romantic union. It was a calculated and strategic move. Sicily, at the time, was a rich and contested land, with a mix of Christian, Muslim, and Byzantine influences. For Roger, the prospect of marrying Adelaide offered not only the alliance with the powerful English-Norman faction but also a foothold in the broader Mediterranean power structure. For Adelaide, this marriage offered an opportunity to extend her influence and step into the role of queen, a title that would require both diplomatic skill and the ability to navigate the complex cultural landscape of Sicily. The journey from Normandy to Sicily would not be easy. The island of Sicily, ruled by Roger I's family, was situated in a region marked by political unrest, constant warfare, and shifting alliances. But Adelaide's marriage to Roger II was a turning point, an intersection between the Norman aristocracy of the north and the diverse, multi-ethnic society that thrived in the Mediterranean basin. As she left the familiar courts of England and France for the sun-drenched shores of Sicily, Adelaide faced both an opportunity and a challenge. This was not just a new life in a foreign land. It was the beginning of her journey into one of the most culturally and politically dynamic regions of the medieval world. Adelaide's adaptation to this new environment would be a key part of her early reign, as she navigated not only the complexities of her relationship with Roger II but also the intricacies of a kingdom that was itself a melting pot of different cultures, faiths, and traditions. Her arrival in Sicily was met with fanfare, as the marriage between Adelaide and Roger was a union of great political significance. Yet it was not just the joining of two powerful families that mattered. It was the moment in which a new phase of Sicily's history began to unfold, a history that would see its transformation from a fragmented land of competing factions to a united, powerful kingdom under Roger II. Adelaide's influence would soon become apparent as she moved through the royal courts of Sicily, making her presence felt not only in political discussions but in the administration of the realm. Her intelligence, diplomatic skill, and understanding of the complexities of royal politics made her an invaluable partner to Roger II. As queen, Adelaide's role would evolve from that of a consort to a political advisor, helping Roger navigate the stormy waters of governance. The story of Adelaide of Normandy, her marriage to Roger II, and the political, cultural, and diplomatic shifts that followed would be the beginning of a new era in Sicily's history. As the young queen settled into her new life on the island, Adelaide quickly realized that Sicily was a world far removed from the courts of Normandy and England, where royal life had been marked by centuries of tradition and familiar politics. Sicily, in contrast, was a land of constant change, a place where cultures collided, and religious and ethnic tensions were always simmering beneath the surface. Roger II, although a ruler of impressive military skill and political ambition, was only just beginning his ascent to true power. His father, Roger I, had established the Norman presence in southern Italy and Sicily, but it was Roger II who would unify the various territories and claim the title of King of Sicily. Yet, despite his early victories, Roger faced opposition from local rulers, Byzantine forces, and even within his own court. The challenges he faced were not only military but also deeply political. He needed to secure the loyalty of his subjects, many of whom came from diverse backgrounds: Norman, Byzantine, Arab, and even Jewish communities. Adelaide, though young and newly wed, quickly took on the mantle of queen with determination. She was no stranger to political maneuvering. After all, her upbringing in the royal courts of England and Normandy had equipped her with a keen sense of diplomacy and power. However, Sicily was not like the kingdoms of her youth. It was a realm of fluid identities and fractured loyalties, where local politics played a crucial role in the larger balance of power. The first months of Adelaide's life in Sicily were not easy. The political landscape was unfamiliar, and the multicultural tensions between the Norman settlers and the indigenous Sicilian population were palpable. Yet, Adelaide's status as a daughter of the English and Norman royal families allowed her to form important alliances with influential local leaders. Her beauty, grace, and diplomatic skill made her an effective ambassador for Roger II's rule. She held court, meeting with local nobles, religious leaders, and even emissaries from the Byzantine Empire. One of the most important aspects of Adelaide's reign as queen was her ability to unite the diverse people of Sicily. While Roger II was busy with military campaigns and securing his rule through force, Adelaide worked tirelessly to create a sense of unity and stability within the kingdom. She understood that, for the kingdom to flourish, she would need to secure the loyalty of all its subjects: Normans, Arabs, Byzantines, and Christians alike. Sicily had been under Muslim rule for centuries before the Norman conquest, and the Muslim population was still a significant part of the island's society. There was a delicate balance that needed to be struck. The Christian and Muslim populations were often at odds, and both groups looked to the throne for protection and favor. Adelaide, as queen, took a pragmatic approach to this complex dynamic. She championed religious tolerance, emphasizing the need for peaceful coexistence between the island's diverse communities. One notable example of her influence was her involvement in religious affairs. Despite her own Christian faith, Adelaide was deeply respectful of the Muslim traditions in Sicily. She worked with Roger to ensure that the Islamic population was treated with fairness, particularly in their religious practices. This was a rare stance for a queen of her time. Many Christian monarchs saw Muslims as adversaries, but Adelaide saw them as partners in the future of Sicily. Her ability to navigate this complex web of political and religious affiliations helped Roger II consolidate his power. By demonstrating respect for local customs and religious practices, Adelaide helped mitigate potential uprisings and gain the trust of many of Sicily's local leaders. Her diplomatic finesse was one of the key reasons Roger was able to maintain control over the island in its early years. But Adelaide's influence extended beyond the political realm. She also played a significant role in shaping the cultural and architectural landscape of the kingdom. Under Roger II's reign, Sicily became a crossroads of culture, art, and learning. The Norman kings embraced a unique blend of Byzantine, Arab, and Western European traditions, and Adelaide was a central figure in this cultural renaissance. Perhaps the most notable symbol of this cultural fusion was the Palatine Chapel, which Roger II commissioned to be built within the Norman Palace in Palermo. Adelaide, with her keen eye for the arts, supported the project, ensuring that it would be a true reflection of the diverse cultural influences that shaped Sicily. The chapel would later become a masterpiece of medieval art, showcasing intricate mosaics that combined both Christian and Islamic iconography. It was a testament to the enduring legacy of Adelaide's influence on the cultural development of Sicily. While the early years of Adelaide's marriage to Roger II were marked by their joint efforts to build a strong and prosperous kingdom, the pressures of governance took a toll on their relationship. The constant threats to Roger's rule, from internal uprisings to external military conflicts, placed immense stress on the royal couple. At the same time, Adelaide's increasing involvement in court politics began to raise questions about her growing power and influence. Though Roger had been the one to claim the title of king, Adelaide's contributions to his success were undeniable. She was more than just a queen consort. She was an active participant in the governance of Sicily. Their marriage, while politically advantageous, was not without its challenges. As the years passed, tensions began to emerge between the two. Roger was a man of action, driven by military conquest and territorial expansion. Adelaide, on the other hand, was more focused on stability, diplomacy, and the welfare of her people. These differing priorities sometimes led to disagreements about the direction of the kingdom. Despite the occasional friction, Adelaide's influence on Roger's rule remained significant. She was his trusted advisor, and her counsel played a crucial role in shaping many of his decisions. Over time, she became more involved in the day-to-day management of the kingdom, overseeing administrative affairs, managing royal estates, and dealing with diplomatic relations. Her ability to balance the various factions within the kingdom made her an invaluable partner to Roger, even as their personal relationship became more strained. As the first decade of their marriage drew to a close, Adelaide's position in the court grew stronger. She had proven herself to be a capable and intelligent queen, and her political acumen had earned her the respect of both her husband and the people of Sicily. But the political landscape of the kingdom was ever-changing, and new challenges lay ahead. The kingdom that Roger II had fought so hard to unite was still fragile, and there were many threats both within and beyond its borders. In the years to come, Adelaide's influence would only continue to grow, as she helped guide her husband through the turbulent waters of medieval politics. The 12th century was a time of profound transformation across Europe, with powerful monarchies vying for control and influence in an ever-changing political environment. It was an age defined by the aftermath of the First Crusade, shifting alliances, and the establishment of new dynasties. The political landscape of Europe during this time was complex, fragmented, and rife with intrigue, setting the stage for one of the most strategic royal marriages of the period, the union between Adelaide of Normandy and Roger II of Sicily. The rise of new powers. By the dawn of the 12th century, the Western world was recovering from the turbulent upheavals of the previous centuries. The Holy Roman Empire, under the rule of Emperor Henry V, was embroiled in conflicts with the growing power of the Kingdom of France, which was beginning to assert itself as one of Europe's dominant powers. At the same time, England, following the Norman conquest of 1066, had established itself as a strong kingdom under the rule of the Plantagenet dynasty, though it too was facing internal challenges. This backdrop of political uncertainty created an environment ripe for alliances, as monarchs sought to secure their reigns through marriage, diplomacy, and military might. The Crusades, launched in 1095 by Pope Urban II, were one of the defining events of the era. They not only reshaped the religious and cultural map of Europe but also influenced the politics of the Mediterranean. As European rulers launched expeditions to the Holy Land, the Byzantine Empire, once a powerful force in the east, was in decline. Its grip on southern Italy and parts of Sicily was weakening, opening the door for new powers to emerge. In the south of Italy, the Normans were making their mark. The Normans, originally from Scandinavia, had established themselves as formidable warriors and conquerors. Under the leadership of Roger I, they had conquered much of southern Italy, including Sicily, which had been under Muslim rule for centuries. The Norman presence in the Mediterranean was quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with, and Sicily was a key prize. The struggle for control of Sicily. By the early 12th century, Roger I had consolidated Norman control over Sicily, but the island was not yet unified. It was a land marked by a variety of competing factions. Local Muslim rulers, Byzantine influences, and Norman settlers all vied for control. Roger I's efforts to unify these factions were hindered by internal divisions and the threat of Byzantine and Muslim retaliation. As Roger I expanded his rule, he sought to secure not only his own power but also the long-term stability of the Norman presence in Sicily. Roger I's son, Roger II, would inherit the mantle of leadership at a critical juncture in history. As a young man, Roger II was trained for the role of ruler and warrior. However, he quickly realized that his path to the throne would be fraught with obstacles. Roger II's struggle to solidify his rule was compounded by the ongoing resistance from both the Byzantine Empire and the local Muslim populations, as well as the internal power struggles within his own family. This was where Adelaide of Normandy would come into play. As the daughter of Henry I of England, Adelaide was a member of one of the most powerful families in Europe, with connections that spanned the width of the continent. Her marriage to Roger II was not just a matter of love. It was a politically strategic alliance that would have far-reaching consequences for the future of Sicily and southern Italy. The English-Norman connection. Adelaide's heritage as the daughter of Henry I was crucial in the formation of her political identity. Henry I, the fourth son of William the Conqueror, had ascended to the throne of England in 1100 after the untimely death of his older brother, William II. Henry's reign, although marked by his efforts to stabilize the English crown, was also a period of significant tension between England and its neighboring powers. On the one hand, Henry's position as King of England gave him great influence in European affairs. On the other hand, his ability to maintain that power was always at risk due to the fracturing of his kingdom by powerful barons and competing claims to the throne. For the English king, securing alliances with other major European powers was a matter of survival. The marriage of his daughter Adelaide to Roger II of Sicily represented an opportunity to strengthen ties with the Norman rulers of Italy and the Mediterranean, a region of growing importance. For Henry, this was a chance to ensure that Sicily, a region of great strategic value, would remain aligned with the interests of the English crown. But it was not just the English monarchy that stood to gain from the marriage. For Roger II, marrying a woman of such high royal blood was a powerful statement of his ambitions. It signified not only his desire to secure his hold over Sicily, but also his intent to build lasting alliances with the powerful dynasties of Europe. The union with Adelaide, a daughter of the English king and a member of the illustrious Norman family, was a political masterstroke that would help legitimize his rule and cement his status as a European monarch. The Byzantine threat. While the English-Norman connection was vital, the political and military threat of the Byzantine Empire was also a factor in the marriage between Adelaide and Roger II. The Byzantine Empire, once a dominant force in the Mediterranean, had seen its power wane during the 11th and early 12th centuries. The Byzantine emperor at the time, Alexios I Komnenos, was attempting to reclaim lost territories in Italy, including the southern regions, and to restore the imperial influence over Sicily. The Byzantines had deep historical ties to Sicily, and their efforts to maintain control over the island were ongoing. By marrying Adelaide, Roger II not only gained an ally in the form of the English-Norman connection, but also sent a clear signal to the Byzantines that he was a force to be reckoned with in the Mediterranean. This marriage would unite two powerful forces against the fading Byzantine influence, ensuring that Sicily would remain firmly in Norman hands. Muslim Sicily. Another critical element in the political landscape of 12th century Sicily was the Muslim population, which had been established on the island since the 9th century. Although the Normans had driven out the Muslim rulers in many parts of Sicily, the island's Muslim inhabitants remained a significant part of the population. The tensions between the Christian Normans and the Muslim population were a delicate issue, and Roger II's reign would be tested by his ability to manage these complexities. Adelaide's marriage to Roger II offered an opportunity for greater stability, particularly in terms of religious tolerance. While many Christian monarchs of the time viewed Muslims as adversaries, Roger II and Adelaide took a more nuanced approach, ensuring that the Muslim population was allowed to practice their faith without persecution. This policy of religious tolerance was a cornerstone of Roger II's reign and one that Adelaide supported. A marriage of political necessity. The union between Roger II and Adelaide of Normandy was, without question, a marriage of political necessity. It was an alliance forged not out of romantic love but out of strategic ambition. Roger needed a powerful ally in Europe, and Adelaide, as the daughter of Henry I, represented an opportunity to forge an enduring connection with the English crown. For Adelaide, this marriage was an opportunity to extend her influence into the Mediterranean and to play a crucial role in the shaping of European politics. But the marriage was also a recognition of the changing tides of power in the Mediterranean world. The Byzantine Empire's decline, the increasing influence of the Normans, and the growing importance of Sicily as a major power center in the region all converged to create a perfect storm of political dynamics. Through their union, Adelaide and Roger II set the stage for the formation of one of the most unique and powerful kingdoms in medieval Europe, a kingdom that would become a crossroads of culture, power, and influence. The union between Adelaide of Normandy and Roger II of Sicily was not one that sprang from a romantic connection or personal desire, but from the political and strategic ambitions of two powerful families. It was a marriage designed to secure and solidify the rule of one of the most ambitious and dynamic monarchs of the 12th century, Roger II, while also fortifying the position of the English crown through its connection with Sicily, a region that was rapidly emerging as a key player in the Mediterranean. A strategic alliance. By the early 1110s, Roger II's position in Sicily was still far from secure. Although he had inherited much from his father, Roger I, and had already secured several military victories, the Norman rule in Sicily was threatened by both external forces, such as the Byzantine Empire and the local Muslim rulers, as well as internal factions vying for power. The island was a land of incredible wealth, but also rife with political instability. To maintain control over such a rich and diverse territory, Roger needed alliances, strong, lasting alliances that would cement his authority. On the other side of the Channel, in England, Adelaide of Normandy was poised at the intersection of her own royal destiny. The daughter of Henry I, the King of England, Adelaide's position in the English court was one of prominence. She had been raised in the lap of luxury, receiving the best education and being trained in the ways of diplomacy, statecraft, and marriage, skills that would prove vital as her life took a turn toward the southern shores of the Mediterranean. Adelaide's marriage prospects had long been a matter of political discussion in Europe. As the daughter of Henry I, she was one of the most sought-after brides of her time. But the politics of the moment would soon dictate her path. The marriage of Adelaide to Roger II was born out of necessity, not only for Roger but also for Henry I, whose reign in England was far from assured. As the king of a fractured kingdom, Henry I understood the value of forging alliances through marriage. He had already experienced the tensions and divisions within England following the death of his brother William II, and securing an alliance with the Normans in southern Italy through his daughter would give him an upper hand against his rivals. Thus, the marriage proposal was not just a question of family connections. It was a decision that had far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in Europe and the Mediterranean. The union would forge a link between the Kingdom of England and the Norman-controlled territories in Italy, solidifying Roger II's ambitions while also ensuring that the English crown would have a say in the Mediterranean's future. The decision to marry. The negotiation for Adelaide's marriage to Roger II was no simple matter. There were many factors at play: the political landscape in both England and Sicily, the changing power dynamics in the Mediterranean, and the personal ambitions of the two rulers. Henry I had no intention of allowing his daughter to marry without careful consideration of the political benefits, and Roger II's motives were equally pragmatic. He needed an ally who could bolster his claim to the throne and provide diplomatic leverage in the region. Roger II, though still a young man, was already making a name for himself as a military leader, having already won several battles against local rulers and the Byzantine Empire. His desire to create a unified Norman kingdom in Sicily was not just about territorial expansion. It was also about legitimacy. Sicily was a land of mixed cultures, Norman settlers, Byzantine influence, and a large Muslim population. So securing the support of influential foreign monarchies was crucial. A marriage to Adelaide, the daughter of Henry I, would provide the necessary legitimacy, linking Sicily to one of the most powerful families in Europe. Adelaide, for her part, had little say in the matter. While the thought of marrying a powerful king in the Mediterranean may have been an attractive one, she was ultimately bound by the politics of her father's reign. She would be leaving behind the familiar world of England and Normandy for a foreign land, Sicily, with its complex political and cultural dynamics. It was not a decision made lightly, but one that, in her role as a royal daughter, she could not refuse. Adelaide's life had always been shaped by the whims of power, and now, the currents of history were pulling her towards Sicily. The prospect of marriage to Roger II must have seemed daunting. She would not only have to navigate the treacherous waters of Sicilian politics, but also step into the role of queen consort in a kingdom marked by its cultural and religious diversity. Yet, Adelaide was no stranger to diplomacy, and her education had prepared her for such a role. Raised in the royal courts, she had learned the intricacies of courtly life, the art of negotiation, and the subtle diplomacy that could sway even the most powerful monarchs. She knew that her role as queen would be one of great importance, one that could help shape the future of Sicily and its people. The marriage took place in 1113, amid much fanfare and celebration. The union between Roger II and Adelaide was not just a personal affair. It was a political spectacle, designed to signal the world that the Norman rule in Sicily was firmly entrenched, and that the influence of the English crown would be felt in the Mediterranean. The wedding ceremony was a lavish event, held in the capital city of Palermo, where Adelaide would soon take her place as queen. As she entered Sicily, Adelaide must have been struck by the stark contrast to the courts of Normandy and England. Sicily, although beautiful, was a land of chaos, a land still scarred by centuries of conquest, conflict, and religious tension. The Norman settlers, though powerful, were but a small part of the island's population, which included Muslims, Byzantines, and native Sicilians. For Adelaide, the task ahead was clear. She needed to help Roger II bring order to this fractious land, while also building strong relationships with the various communities that called Sicily home. Her first steps as queen were focused on diplomacy and statecraft. She began to meet with local leaders and religious figures, carefully positioning herself as an ally to both the Christian and Muslim populations. She was not simply a queen in title. She was a powerful political figure who could help unify the various factions of Sicily under Roger's banner. Adelaide's ability to mediate between the island's diverse groups would prove invaluable to Roger II's reign. While he was busy securing his rule through military means, Adelaide was working behind the scenes to build alliances and strengthen the social fabric of the kingdom. Her diplomatic efforts helped to stabilize the situation, allowing Roger II to focus on expanding his influence and securing his control over the island. A marriage that changed history. The marriage between Adelaide of Normandy and Roger II of Sicily was a union that would change the course of history. Together, they would forge one of the most powerful and culturally diverse kingdoms in medieval Europe. Their partnership would not only help to consolidate Norman rule in Sicily, but also ensure that the influence of the English crown would be felt in the Mediterranean for generations to come. For Adelaide, the marriage marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a life that would be shaped by the politics of Sicily, the ambitions of her husband, and her own determination to help create a kingdom that would be remembered as one of the most unique and prosperous in Europe. It was a partnership that would leave an indelible mark on history, one that would shape the future of Sicily, the Mediterranean, and even the wider European world. The marriage between Adelaide of Normandy and Roger II of Sicily was far more than a mere political alliance. It was the beginning of a partnership that would shape the future of Sicily. As queen consort, Adelaide was not merely a figurehead beside her husband. She was an active participant in the affairs of the realm, playing a pivotal role in the consolidation of Roger II's power and the stabilization of his newly unified kingdom. Her influence in the early years of their marriage would prove crucial, not only for Roger's success but also for the broader future of Sicily and the delicate balance of power in the Mediterranean. Adapting to a new world. Adelaide's transition from the royal courts of England and Normandy to the complex political and cultural landscape of Sicily was a momentous one. The island, although stunningly beautiful, was a land rife with political and social tensions. The Norman conquest of Sicily had been a brutal and messy affair, with the island's Muslim, Byzantine, and local Christian populations each holding distinct identities and loyalties. Despite the Normans' military victories, the region was still deeply divided, and the challenges of ruling over such a fragmented population were formidable. For Adelaide, arriving in Sicily in 1113 meant stepping into a world where her Norman heritage was important, but not the only factor at play. The population of Sicily was not entirely Norman. It was a mix of ethnicities and religions, each with its own customs, traditions, and grievances. As a queen consort, Adelaide's first challenge was to navigate these divisions and find ways to unite the diverse peoples of Sicily under Roger II's rule. From the outset, Adelaide worked tirelessly to cultivate alliances with the local Sicilian nobles and leaders from all walks of life. Unlike many queens consort of the time, who were relegated to ceremonial duties, Adelaide was fully engaged in the governance of the kingdom. She had been raised with a keen understanding of diplomacy and the complexities of royal politics, and she used her skills to great effect. One of her first moves as queen was to focus on strengthening relationships between the various religious and ethnic communities on the island. The Christian Normans, the Muslim population, and the Greek Orthodox Byzantines all had a presence on the island, and their interests often conflicted. The delicate balance of power required a monarch who could speak to all parties, and Adelaide was uniquely positioned to do so. As a Christian queen, she was able to align with the Normans and the local Christian population, but her diplomatic efforts also extended to the Muslims and the Greeks. Building bridges between cultures. Sicily, under the Norman rule, was a crossroads of cultures. The island had long been a center of intellectual and cultural exchange between the Christian, Muslim, and Byzantine worlds. The coexistence of these diverse groups had given rise to a flourishing of art, science, and learning. Adelaide, who had been raised in the refined atmosphere of the courts of England and Normandy, was no stranger to the importance of cultural patronage and the potential for cultural exchange. But her role as queen consort gave her the unique ability to use these tools for the benefit of her kingdom. One of her most significant contributions to the cultural life of Sicily was her patronage of the arts. Adelaide supported the construction of new buildings, commissioned works of art, and sponsored the preservation of historical texts. Most notably, her influence was felt in the construction of the Palatine Chapel in Palermo, a project that would become one of the most iconic examples of the fusion of Norman, Byzantine, and Islamic architectural styles. The Palatine Chapel was not just a religious symbol. It was a representation of the cultural unity that Adelaide sought to foster in Sicily. The chapel's mosaics, which combined Christian and Islamic iconography, were a reflection of Adelaide's vision for a kingdom where all cultures and religions could coexist. She understood that the diversity of Sicily was both its greatest strength and its greatest challenge. By promoting tolerance and collaboration, she hoped to create a kingdom that would thrive both culturally and politically. In addition to her cultural endeavors, Adelaide also focused on strengthening the administration of the kingdom. She played an instrumental role in helping Roger II establish a more centralized government, one that would bring stability to a land that had long been marked by internal strife. She advised her husband on matters of statecraft and helped to secure the loyalty of the local nobles and leaders. Adelaide's ability to bridge the divides between the various factions in Sicily was essential to Roger's success in consolidating his power. Support for religious tolerance. One of the most remarkable aspects of Adelaide's reign as queen consort was her commitment to religious tolerance. In a time when religious divisions often led to conflict, Adelaide's belief in peaceful coexistence set her apart from other rulers. She understood that the strength of Roger II's kingdom depended on the cooperation of the different religious communities on the island. Adelaide's approach to religious tolerance was grounded in pragmatism. She knew that if the various groups on the island, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, were to coexist peacefully, they needed to feel respected and valued. Her support for the Muslim population, who had been on the island for centuries, was particularly notable. While many Christian monarchs of the time viewed Muslims with suspicion, Adelaide sought to create an environment where both religions could flourish. Adelaide's influence in this regard extended to the court. She invited Muslim scholars, artists, and intellectuals to the court, encouraging the exchange of ideas between Christian and Muslim thinkers. This openness to intellectual and cultural exchange helped to create an atmosphere of mutual respect and collaboration. Under her guidance, the court of Roger II became a hub of learning, where scholars from various traditions came together to discuss philosophy, science, and the arts. In many ways, Adelaide's religious tolerance was not just a matter of policy. It was a reflection of her personal convictions. As a queen consort, she understood the power of unity, and she believed that unity could only be achieved through mutual respect. Her efforts to foster peace between the different religious groups in Sicily were a testament to her wisdom and foresight. Challenges of queenhood. Despite her many successes, Adelaide's role as queen consort was not without its challenges. The political situation in Sicily remained volatile, and there were constant threats to Roger II's rule. While Roger focused on the military aspects of securing the kingdom, Adelaide's role was often to manage the internal dynamics and ensure the loyalty of key factions. The tension between Roger II and the Byzantine Empire was a constant issue. Although the Byzantines had lost much of their influence in Italy, they still retained some claim to southern Italy and Sicily. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos had long sought to reassert control over the region, and this threat lingered throughout the early years of Roger II's reign. Adelaide played a key role in helping to mediate the relationship between Roger and the Byzantines. She understood that a war with the Byzantines could destabilize the kingdom, and she worked tirelessly to maintain peace while supporting Roger's efforts to expand his territory. Another challenge Adelaide faced was the internal divisions within the Norman court. Although Roger had gained control of Sicily, he still had to contend with competing factions within the Norman nobility. Some nobles were reluctant to accept his rule, and their discontent threatened the stability of the kingdom. Adelaide's diplomacy was once again put to the test as she worked to secure the loyalty of these powerful families. She used her influence to negotiate with the rebellious factions, ensuring that they remained loyal to the crown and preventing potential uprisings. Legacy of Adelaide's early years. The early years of Adelaide's reign as queen consort were marked by her ability to balance diplomacy, governance, and cultural patronage. Through her efforts, she helped to stabilize the kingdom, promote religious tolerance, and establish a legacy of cultural fusion that would endure for centuries. Her influence in the court, in the administration, and in the lives of the Sicilian people was profound. As Roger II's wife, Adelaide was not merely a consort. She was a partner in every sense of the word. Her diplomatic skills, her commitment to religious tolerance, and her vision for a unified Sicily made her an invaluable ally to her husband. Together, they would go on to build a kingdom that was both powerful and culturally rich, a kingdom that would leave a lasting imprint on the history of the Mediterranean. The early years of Roger II's reign were marked by challenges, both external and internal. Although he had inherited a vast and diverse realm, the path to consolidating his power was far from smooth. The southern Italian territories, where he sought to establish a unified Norman kingdom, were still embroiled in local rivalries, regional divisions, and the continuing presence of Byzantine and Muslim factions. It was in this volatile environment that Roger II and his queen consort, Adelaide of Normandy, had to chart a course toward stability and strength. The inheritance of a fragmented kingdom. Roger II's father, Roger I, had established Norman rule over much of southern Italy and Sicily by the time of his death in 1101. But although Roger I's conquests were impressive, the territories he had conquered remained divided. The Norman-controlled regions of southern Italy, the Muslim-controlled territories in Sicily, and the Byzantine enclaves in the region all operated with a certain level of autonomy. This fragmentation made it difficult for any one ruler to establish full control over the region. Upon Roger I's death, Roger II inherited not only the Kingdom of Sicily but also the fractured territories of southern Italy. His inheritance was far from straightforward. He faced opposition from rival Norman families, discontent among local rulers, and the ever-present threat of Byzantine attempts to reclaim the region. While his father had been a skilled and pragmatic military leader, Roger II's challenges required not just strength but also strategic diplomacy. The future of his reign would depend not only on his military prowess but also on his ability to navigate the intricate political landscape of southern Italy. One of the first obstacles Roger II faced was the internal conflict between different Norman factions in southern Italy. The Norman nobles, although loyal to the idea of a unified kingdom, were often unwilling to give up their own local autonomy. The Norman settlers in the region held vast estates, and many had established their own power bases, often operating independently of any central authority. These factions, while nominally loyal to Roger II, viewed his rise to power with suspicion. They were accustomed to ruling their own lands, and the idea of a centralized monarchy under Roger II was not immediately accepted by all. At the same time, Roger II faced external threats, particularly from the Byzantine Empire, which still laid claim to parts of southern Italy and Sicily. The Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos had long sought to reassert imperial control over the region, and the loss of southern Italy to the Normans was a bitter blow. The Byzantine Empire, although weakened by internal struggles, remained a significant power in the eastern Mediterranean. Roger's task was to secure his southern territories while avoiding conflict with the Byzantines, who could destabilize his nascent kingdom. The role of Adelaide in Roger's political strategy. Adelaide, as queen consort, played a crucial role in helping Roger II navigate the treacherous waters of early rule. While Roger was engaged in military campaigns and forging alliances, Adelaide's role was often that of a mediator and diplomatic force behind the scenes. Her background in the courts of Normandy and England, where she had witnessed the intricacies of royal politics, made her uniquely qualified to assist Roger in his efforts to unify the kingdom. Her first major contribution was in helping Roger II consolidate his power among the Norman nobility. While Roger was focused on military campaigns, it was Adelaide's diplomatic acumen that helped to smooth over tensions within the court. The Norman barons, who had been used to a decentralized system of rule, were resistant to the idea of a powerful, centralized monarchy. Adelaide worked behind the scenes to build alliances with key nobles, using her influence to ensure that the various factions of Norman society remained loyal to Roger II. At the same time, Adelaide's diplomatic efforts were directed outward, focusing on the Byzantine Empire and the local Muslim population. One of the key factors in ensuring the stability of Roger II's rule was his ability to manage relationships with these groups. While Roger was engaged in military action, Adelaide sought to maintain peace with the Byzantine Empire, avoiding direct confrontation while still asserting Norman control over the region. She also worked to secure the loyalty of the Muslim population, who, although conquered by the Normans, were a significant portion of Sicily's population. Her policy of religious tolerance, which had been a hallmark of her early years as queen, was an essential tool in maintaining stability in the kingdom. Unifying the kingdom, the battle for legitimacy. For Roger II, the issue of legitimacy was paramount. While he had inherited the title of Count of Sicily and the surrounding territories, the recognition of his rule as king was not a simple matter. His control over southern Italy was contested by various factions, including the Byzantine Empire, local rebels, and rival Norman families. His claim to the throne needed to be legitimized both within his realm and in the eyes of the broader Christian world. The marriage to Adelaide of Normandy played a key role in legitimizing Roger II's rule. As the daughter of Henry I of England, Adelaide was a valuable political asset. Her marriage to Roger provided a direct link between the Norman rulers of southern Italy and the English crown. This connection not only solidified Roger's political standing in Europe but also provided him with a powerful ally in the form of the English monarchy. Henry I, while focused on his own struggles in England, saw the marriage as a means of extending his influence into the Mediterranean, ensuring that his interests were represented in the region. Adelaide, with her noble lineage, helped to provide Roger II with the legitimacy he needed. The union between the two was a statement to the world that Roger was not just a conqueror but a king with the backing of one of Europe's most powerful royal families. This alliance, forged through marriage, allowed Roger II to focus on expanding his control over southern Italy while knowing that his position as king was increasingly secure. Roger's rise to power was also marked by his ability to adapt to the changing political landscape. The political environment of the Mediterranean was complex, with shifting allegiances, cultural tensions, and religious divides. Roger understood that, in order to secure his reign, he needed to balance the needs and desires of his various subjects. The Norman settlers, the local Sicilian nobles, the Muslim population, and the Byzantine remnants all required different forms of governance and appeasement. Roger II's genius lay in his ability to manage these complex dynamics, and Adelaide's influence in court politics was instrumental in ensuring that these factions remained loyal to him. Strengthening the Norman kingdom in Sicily. By the mid-1120s, Roger II had achieved a level of consolidation that was remarkable given the challenges he faced. He had successfully unified much of southern Italy under his rule, and his kingdom was beginning to take shape as a powerful, centralized state. The struggles that had defined the early years of his reign were beginning to fade, and he was able to focus more on governance than on military conquest. During this period, Adelaide's role as queen consort remained crucial. As Roger worked to strengthen his kingdom, Adelaide continued to serve as a mediator, advisor, and cultural ambassador. She worked to establish a court that was a reflection of the diversity and cultural richness of Sicily. Under her influence, Palermo became a center of intellectual and artistic activity, where Muslim, Christian, and Byzantine traditions blended in unique and harmonious ways. Adelaide's diplomatic efforts were particularly important as Roger II expanded his realm into new territories. His ambitions included not only strengthening his control over Sicily and southern Italy, but also extending his influence into North Africa and beyond. Adelaide, with her connections in England and Normandy, was able to assist in securing alliances and providing the necessary diplomatic support to Roger's expansionist ambitions. The legacy of Adelaide's influence. By the time Roger II was crowned as the queen consort of Roger II, Adelaide of Normandy was not merely a figurehead. She was a powerful and active force behind the throne. Her diplomatic expertise, cultural vision, and administrative abilities contributed immensely to the stability and prosperity of the Kingdom of Sicily. While Roger II was busy with military campaigns and consolidating his rule, Adelaide focused on the long-term success of the kingdom, forging alliances, overseeing governance, and fostering a unique cultural identity that would define the Norman Kingdom of Sicily for generations. A queen with a vision for unity. Sicily, under Roger II's rule, was an amalgamation of different peoples, cultures, and religions. The Norman settlers, the Muslim population, the Byzantine Greeks, and the indigenous Christian Sicilians all lived side by side, each group with its own traditions, languages, and customs. This diversity was both a strength and a challenge, as the various factions had to coexist in a single kingdom. Adelaide understood that the key to Roger II's success lay in building unity within this complex society. Adelaide's approach to governance was one of inclusion and tolerance. She did not seek to impose a single culture or religion on the people of Sicily. Rather, she encouraged the coexistence of different communities. She understood that the strength of Roger II's kingdom lay in the ability to integrate these diverse groups, to foster cooperation rather than division. While Roger was focused on military conquests and securing his control over new territories, Adelaide worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that the different cultural and religious factions within Sicily felt represented and respected. Her role was crucial in creating a court that reflected the kingdom's multicultural nature. Under her influence, the court in Palermo became a center of intellectual and artistic exchange, where scholars, poets, and artists from various traditions came together to share knowledge and ideas. Adelaide actively promoted religious tolerance, encouraging dialogue between the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish communities. She knew that to maintain peace and stability in Sicily, it was vital to ensure that all groups felt secure in their religious and cultural practices. Cultural patronage and artistic flourishing. One of Adelaide's most significant contributions to the Kingdom of Sicily was her patronage of the arts. Sicily, with its rich history of cultural exchange between the Arab, Byzantine, and Western Christian worlds, had the potential to become a center of artistic and intellectual activity. Adelaide, with her keen sense of diplomacy and cultural appreciation, supported the flourishing of the arts in the court of Roger II. Under her guidance, the Norman Kingdom of Sicily became a melting pot of artistic influences. The architecture, literature, music, and art of the period reflected the blending of different cultural traditions. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo, one of the most iconic architectural feats of the Norman period, is perhaps the most striking example of this cultural fusion. The chapel, commissioned by Roger II and supported by Adelaide, combined Norman, Byzantine, and Islamic architectural styles, creating a stunning symbol of the kingdom's diversity. The chapel's mosaics, which depict Christian themes using Islamic artistic techniques, became a masterpiece that is still admired today. Adelaide's patronage extended beyond architecture. She encouraged the translation of works from Arabic, Greek, and Latin into Latin and Arabic, allowing scholars from different cultures to access and share knowledge. The court became a hub of intellectual activity, where scholars could engage in discussions on philosophy, science, and the arts. By fostering this environment of intellectual exchange, Adelaide ensured that Sicily would become a center of learning, attracting scholars from all over the Mediterranean. Her efforts to blend different artistic traditions also led to the creation of a unique Sicilian style in literature and art. This was particularly evident in the royal court's patronage of poets and musicians, who celebrated the diverse cultures that made up the kingdom. In many ways, Adelaide's support of the arts helped to solidify Sicily's place as a cultural bridge between East and West during the medieval period, strengthening the administrative machinery. While Adelaide was primarily known for her cultural contributions, she was also deeply involved in the administrative affairs of the kingdom. The governance of Sicily was complex, with a diverse population spread across the island and the mainland territories of southern Italy. As queen consort, Adelaide played a pivotal role in ensuring the efficient running of the kingdom's administrative systems. Adelaide's early experiences at the courts of Normandy and England had taught her the importance of efficient administration. She understood that a kingdom as large and diverse as Sicily required a well-organized bureaucracy to maintain order and ensure the smooth functioning of the state. Adelaide worked closely with Roger II to help establish a central administration that could oversee the various regions of the kingdom, from the Norman-controlled areas of Sicily to the more rebellious territories on the mainland. One of Adelaide's most important contributions was her role in overseeing the royal estates and managing the kingdom's finances. She played an active part in managing the collection of taxes, the allocation of resources, and the maintenance of public order. Her understanding of the financial needs of the kingdom allowed her to ensure that Roger II had the resources necessary to carry out his military campaigns while also funding the kingdom's administrative and cultural projects. In addition to managing the finances, Adelaide worked to improve the kingdom's legal system. She understood the importance of maintaining justice and ensuring that the laws applied fairly to all subjects, regardless of their religion or ethnicity. Under her guidance, Roger II's court became a place where disputes were resolved in a fair and equitable manner. This helped to foster a sense of stability and trust among the various communities, who knew that their grievances would be heard and addressed. Adelaide's role in diplomacy. As a queen consort, Adelaide was not only a key figure in the internal affairs of Sicily, but also played a significant role in its external diplomacy. Her marriage to Roger II had secured an important alliance between Sicily and the English crown, and Adelaide used this connection to strengthen Roger's position in the Mediterranean world. One of Adelaide's major diplomatic achievements was her role in securing peace with the Byzantine Empire. Although the Byzantines had lost much of their territorial holdings in Italy to the Normans, their influence was still felt in the region. Throughout Roger II's reign, the threat of Byzantine intervention loomed large. Adelaide's diplomatic skill was crucial in ensuring that Sicily remained free from Byzantine control. She worked tirelessly to maintain peaceful relations with the Byzantines, using her family connections and political acumen to prevent conflict. Adelaide also played a key role in maintaining good relations with the Muslim rulers in North Africa, which was important for securing trade routes and resources. By fostering relationships with these rulers, Adelaide helped to ensure that Sicily remained a prosperous and stable kingdom, with access to the wealth and resources of the Mediterranean world. Adelaide's legacy. Adelaide's influence on the Kingdom of Sicily cannot be overstated. Her contributions to the cultural, administrative, and diplomatic development of the kingdom were invaluable. Under her guidance, Sicily became one of the most culturally diverse and intellectually vibrant states in medieval Europe. Her commitment to religious tolerance, her support for the arts, and her administrative skills helped to create a kingdom that would endure for centuries. Though she may not have been as visible in the military campaigns as her husband, Adelaide's influence was just as critical to the success of Roger II's reign. She played a key role in shaping the kingdom's identity and ensuring its stability. Her legacy, which can still be seen in the architectural wonders and cultural achievements of Sicily, stands as a testament to the power of a queen consort who was not merely a passive figure, but a true partner in governance. Under the reign of Roger II, Sicily became a beacon of artistic, cultural, and architectural achievement in the Mediterranean. The kingdom, diverse in its people and influences, was also a canvas for the blending of Norman, Byzantine, Arab, and Latin traditions. Much of this cultural fusion was encapsulated in the grand architectural projects that Roger II undertook, with his queen consort, Adelaide of Normandy, playing an integral role in guiding these developments. The royal court of Roger II, situated in Palermo, became one of the most splendid in Europe. The city itself, already steeped in history as a crossroads of civilizations, was transformed during Roger's reign into a center of luxury and learning. But while Roger's military campaigns and political skill were crucial to securing the kingdom, it was the vision of both Roger and Adelaide that brought Sicily to prominence as a cultural and artistic power. The construction of the Palatine Chapel. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo stands as one of the most enduring symbols of Roger II's reign, and, by extension, of Adelaide's influence in shaping the kingdom's cultural landscape. Situated within the Norman Palace, the chapel is a stunning fusion of Byzantine, Norman, and Islamic architectural elements, perfectly embodying the multicultural nature of the Kingdom of Sicily. Roger II's decision to build the chapel was not just a religious or architectural one. It was a political statement. The chapel would not only serve as a place of worship but also as a symbol of his kingdom's power and religious legitimacy. By commissioning the construction of the Palatine Chapel, Roger sought to showcase the grandeur of the newly unified Kingdom of Sicily, a kingdom that bridged the cultural divides between the Christian, Muslim, and Byzantine worlds. Adelaide's role in the creation of the chapel was critical. As queen consort, Adelaide had significant influence over the court's cultural and architectural affairs. Her background in the courts of Normandy and England gave her a deep appreciation for the arts, and she was instrumental in fostering the development of the chapel. She worked closely with Roger II to ensure that the project would reflect the diverse cultural influences that made up their kingdom. The Palatine Chapel is a stunning example of this fusion. The mosaics that adorn the walls are a striking blend of Christian iconography and Islamic artistic techniques. The chapel's ceiling, with its intricate wooden panels, reflects Norman craftsmanship, while the overall design of the building incorporates Byzantine influences. The result is a masterpiece that encapsulates the unique identity of Roger II's Sicily, a kingdom that was both Roman and Islamic, Christian and Eastern. Adelaide's vision for the chapel extended beyond its architectural grandeur. She understood the cultural and symbolic importance of the chapel in promoting a sense of unity within the kingdom. By blending these diverse artistic traditions, Adelaide helped to create a symbol of religious and cultural coexistence that was central to the Norman identity in Sicily. The chapel was not just a space for religious devotion, but a testament to the harmonious integration of the kingdom's multiple communities. The royal palaces of Palermo and Cefalù. While the Palatine Chapel is the most famous of the architectural projects commissioned during Roger II's reign, it was by no means the only one. Roger II's royal palaces in Palermo and Cefalù were also grand symbols of his rule and were designed to reflect both his political power and his cultural sophistication. The Norman Palace in Palermo, where the Palatine Chapel was located, was the epicenter of royal life. The palace itself underwent significant renovations during Roger II's reign, transforming it into a stunning complex that combined both fortifications and luxurious living spaces. The palace was strategically positioned to allow for both defense and magnificence, symbolizing the strength and grandeur of the Norman kings. In Cefalù, another magnificent royal palace was built, overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. This palace, like the one in Palermo, was designed not only for its practical purpose as a royal residence, but also to showcase the kingdom's wealth and architectural expertise. The palaces, combined with the Palatine Chapel, created a royal complex that was unmatched in Europe at the time and became a symbol of Roger and Adelaide's vision for Sicily. Adelaide's influence on these projects was significant. As a queen consort, she was actively involved in the selection of artists, architects, and craftsmen who would contribute to these grand buildings. Her appreciation for fine art and her desire to create a cultural legacy for her kingdom were evident in every detail of the construction. The palaces were not simply homes for the royal family. They were works of art that reflected the complex and diverse nature of Sicily itself, cultural renaissance and intellectual patronage. In addition to the monumental building projects, Adelaide also played a key role in fostering intellectual growth and the cultural renaissance that occurred during Roger II's reign. The court of Roger II became a center of learning, where scholars from across the Mediterranean came to exchange ideas. The Norman court in Palermo was home to a unique blend of Byzantine, Arab, and Latin scholars, who engaged in discussions on philosophy, science, literature, and theology. Adelaide, with her keen interest in intellectual pursuits, encouraged this cross-cultural exchange. Her own education in the courts of Normandy and England had exposed her to a wealth of knowledge, and she was determined to make her court a place where learning and the arts could thrive. Under her patronage, scholars translated classical Greek and Roman texts into Arabic and Latin, and Arabic texts were translated into Latin. This intellectual exchange was instrumental in preserving and transmitting knowledge that would later contribute to the European Renaissance. The cultural flourishing of the court was also reflected in the creation of a unique Sicilian literary tradition. Poets and musicians from all backgrounds were invited to the court, and the blending of different traditions produced a distinctive style of literature and music that would influence the wider Mediterranean world. Adelaide's patronage of the arts and intellectual life helped to make the court of Roger II one of the most vibrant and culturally diverse in Europe. The symbolism of the palaces and projects. The palaces and architectural projects commissioned during Roger II's reign were more than just symbols of wealth and power. They were symbols of his vision for a united Sicily. Each project, from the Palatine Chapel to the royal palaces, was a testament to the blending of different cultures and religious traditions. Adelaide's role in guiding these projects cannot be overstated. Her cultural vision, combined with her diplomatic skills, helped to shape a kingdom that was both powerful and culturally rich. The architectural projects were not merely about displaying opulence. They were about creating a sense of identity for the kingdom. In a land that was divided by religion, ethnicity, and culture, the palaces and religious buildings served as unifying symbols. They represented the ideal of a kingdom where different peoples could live together in harmony, each contributing to the greater whole. Adelaide's influence on the architectural and cultural landscape of Sicily was profound. She understood that the way the kingdom was represented to the outside world would have a lasting impact on its legacy. Through her patronage of the arts and architecture, she helped to create a cultural identity for Sicily that was both unique and enduring. A lasting legacy. The palaces and building projects of Roger II's reign, with Adelaide's guidance, left a lasting legacy that continues to inspire awe today. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo stands as a masterpiece of medieval architecture, a symbol of the cultural fusion that defined Roger II's reign. The royal palaces of Palermo and Cefalù, with their grandeur and beauty, remain testament to the vision of a queen who sought to create a kingdom that was both politically powerful and culturally vibrant. Adelaide's role in these projects was integral, and her influence can still be felt in the enduring cultural and architectural heritage of Sicily. The legacy of the Palatine Chapel and the royal palaces speaks to her ability to shape not only the political destiny of the kingdom but also its cultural future. Under her guidance, Sicily became a beacon of intellectual and artistic achievement, a place where cultures could come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. While the reign of Roger II and Adelaide of Normandy is often seen as a golden age for the Kingdom of Sicily, their marriage was not without its challenges. The complexities of ruling such a diverse and fractious realm, combined with their differing personalities and priorities, eventually led to tensions in their personal relationship. Despite their initial success and shared vision for Sicily, the pressures of governance, military campaigns, and the intricacies of court life strained their bond in ways that would shape the future of both their marriage and their kingdom. The early years, a strong partnership. In the early years of their marriage, Adelaide and Roger II seemed to form a powerful and effective partnership. Adelaide's diplomatic acumen and cultural vision complemented Roger's military prowess and political ambition. Together, they worked tirelessly to stabilize the kingdom, maintain peace among its diverse population, and ensure that the arts, culture, and intellectual life flourished. Adelaide was an essential figure behind the scenes, using her influence to mediate disputes, form alliances, and foster religious tolerance within the kingdom. Her role in supporting Roger's reign was pivotal. Without her diplomatic efforts, it is likely that the many factions within the kingdom would have fractured under the weight of internal tensions. For a time, their union was one of mutual respect and shared goals, with Adelaide supporting Roger's rule both in public and private. However, as the years passed, the pressures of ruling a kingdom as vast and diverse as Sicily began to take their toll on the royal couple. Their marriage, once characterized by cooperation and mutual support, began to face strain as their individual priorities started to diverge. The growing strain of power and governance. Roger II was an ambitious and driven ruler, focused on expanding his kingdom's influence and securing his legacy. His military campaigns, his efforts to extend control over North Africa, and his desire to solidify his power in the Mediterranean were at the forefront of his mind. He was a monarch who prioritized territorial expansion and military conquest, and his focus on these goals often left little room for the personal or emotional aspects of his life. Adelaide, on the other hand, while also deeply invested in the success of the kingdom, had different priorities. She saw her role as queen consort not only as a political position but as a cultural and intellectual one as well. While Roger concentrated on the military and territorial ambitions of Sicily, Adelaide focused on the long-term welfare of the kingdom, its administration, and its cultural renaissance. She sought to ensure that the various communities in Sicily lived in harmony, and her policies of religious tolerance and intellectual patronage were central to her vision for the kingdom. Their differing priorities, Roger's military ambitions and Adelaide's cultural and administrative focus, eventually created tensions between the two. Roger's campaigns required an immense amount of time and attention, and his growing preoccupation with territorial expansion left Adelaide to manage the increasingly complex internal affairs of the kingdom. While Roger was often away on military campaigns, Adelaide had to govern the kingdom in his absence, overseeing the royal estates, managing diplomatic relations, and keeping the delicate balance of power within Sicily. As Roger's attention shifted toward his military conquests, Adelaide found herself increasingly isolated in the court. Although she had a significant amount of influence and autonomy, the growing distance between her and Roger created a sense of emotional separation. Their shared vision for Sicily seemed to falter as Roger became more focused on his expansionist goals, while Adelaide's focus remained on the kingdom's internal cohesion and cultural flourishing. The emotional distance between Roger II and Adelaide was exacerbated by the challenges of their royal roles. The constant demands of governance, combined with the pressure of maintaining a multicultural kingdom, meant that their relationship was often strained. Adelaide's efforts to create a stable and harmonious realm, with a focus on diplomacy and culture, sometimes clashed with Roger's more militaristic and expansionist goals. Moreover, Roger's involvement in lengthy military campaigns, including his efforts to assert control over parts of North Africa and his conflicts with the Byzantine Empire, often kept him away from court for extended periods of time. During these absences, Adelaide was left to handle the day-to-day affairs of the kingdom, which included dealing with internal unrest, maintaining alliances with various factions, and overseeing the royal court's cultural projects. These responsibilities, though essential to the kingdom's stability, placed a heavy burden on Adelaide. Adelaide, for her part, had grown accustomed to the power dynamics of royal life, where political considerations often outweighed personal connections. Yet, as time went on, she began to feel the weight of her isolation. The emotional and personal aspects of her marriage were increasingly overshadowed by the demands of their respective roles. Despite their mutual respect and the political necessity of their union, the emotional connection between Adelaide and Roger began to fray under the pressure of their divergent paths. The role of external forces in their relationship. While personal differences played a significant role in the strain between Adelaide and Roger, external forces also contributed to the growing tension in their marriage. One of the most significant external pressures was the ongoing political and military situation in Sicily and the Mediterranean. Roger II was constantly engaged in campaigns to defend his kingdom against external threats and expand its borders. His conflicts with the Byzantine Empire, the Muslim rulers of North Africa, and the various Norman factions in southern Italy required his full attention. As Roger became more engrossed in these military endeavors, the demands of ruling Sicily became more pronounced. His need for control over the various territories within his kingdom meant that he was often absent from court, leaving Adelaide to handle many of the diplomatic and administrative tasks that had once been shared. In addition to military concerns, the complex political situation in Sicily also took its toll on the royal marriage. The various factions within the kingdom, Norman, Muslim, Byzantine, and indigenous Sicilian, often competed for power and influence. As queen, Adelaide worked tirelessly to mediate between these groups, ensuring that each faction felt represented and respected. However, this delicate balance of power often put her in difficult positions, as she had to navigate the interests of rival factions while maintaining her loyalty to Roger and his rule. Moreover, the continued influence of the Byzantine Empire in the eastern Mediterranean created ongoing tension. While Roger sought to expand his influence in North Africa and Italy, the Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos remained a powerful figure who sought to undermine Roger's authority. The diplomatic challenges this posed were significant, and Adelaide's role in managing these tensions was pivotal. However, the constant pressure of dealing with Byzantine diplomacy, coupled with her responsibilities at court, added to the emotional distance between her and Roger. The increasing isolation of Adelaide. By the mid-1120s, Adelaide's growing isolation within the court became increasingly evident. Although she continued to wield considerable influence in the administration of the kingdom, her emotional and personal connection to Roger began to deteriorate. The pressures of ruling a diverse kingdom, combined with their differing priorities, led to an emotional disconnect that neither Roger nor Adelaide seemed able to bridge. Adelaide's role in the kingdom continued to be crucial. She remained a stabilizing force, especially in the management of the court and the kingdom's cultural projects. However, her personal relationship with Roger had become strained. The emotional distance between the two was compounded by the challenges of royal life, with both individuals increasingly caught up in their own priorities and responsibilities. Though their marriage remained politically strong and continued to serve the kingdom, the emotional bond between Roger and Adelaide began to weaken. Their once close partnership, founded on shared ambitions and mutual respect, was no longer as harmonious as it had been in the early years of their reign. Adelaide's legacy, a queen beyond the strain. Despite the growing personal strain in their marriage, Adelaide's legacy as queen consort was undiminished. Her cultural contributions, her role in fostering religious tolerance, and her influence in the administration of the kingdom left an indelible mark on the history of Sicily. She helped to shape the kingdom into a unique and powerful state that bridged the divide between East and West Christianity and Islam, and the various cultural influences that defined the Mediterranean world. Her diplomatic efforts, particularly in maintaining peace between the various factions within Sicily, ensured that the kingdom remained stable during Roger's military campaigns. Adelaide's legacy as a queen who fostered unity, culture, and intellectual exchange is a testament to her vision and determination. While the strain in her marriage to Roger the May II have been inevitable due to the demands of their roles and the pressures of ruling such a diverse kingdom, Adelaide's contributions to Sicily's success were immeasurable. Her strength, wisdom, and diplomacy helped to create a kingdom that would endure for generations, and her legacy continues to be remembered as one of the defining aspects of Roger II's reign. The later years of Roger II's reign were marked by profound challenges, not the least of which was the death of his beloved wife, Adelaide of Normandy, in 1118. Adelaide had been more than just the queen consort. She had been a close advisor, a stabilizing force, and a guiding presence in the court. Her passing would leave an indelible void, both emotionally for Roger and politically for the kingdom. While their marriage had become increasingly strained in the final years, Adelaide's influence had remained crucial to the success of their rule. The shock of her death reverberated throughout Sicily and beyond, marking the end of an era in the kingdom's history. Roger II, for all his political and military brilliance, would now have to navigate the future of his reign without the counsel and partnership of the woman who had helped build the foundations of his kingdom. The death of Adelaide. Adelaide's health had been in decline for some time before her death in 1118. The stresses of ruling a kingdom as complex and diverse as Sicily, combined with the personal toll of her deteriorating relationship with Roger, took a physical and emotional toll on the queen. Throughout her life, Adelaide had been dedicated to the well-being of her people, working tirelessly to maintain diplomatic relations, support the arts, and ensure the internal stability of Sicily. However, by the time of her death, she had grown weary from the unceasing demands of her royal role. Despite the tensions that had emerged in her marriage, Adelaide's devotion to her kingdom and her husband remained steadfast. Her death at the relatively young age of 23 shocked the court and left Roger with a deep sense of loss. The emotional strain of her passing was compounded by the political uncertainty it created for the kingdom. Roger II, now left to rule without his closest advisor and most trusted partner, was forced to confront the challenges of governance on his own. Roger's grief and loss. Roger II's grief at Adelaide's death was profound. Despite the growing emotional distance between them in the years leading up to her passing, there had always been a deep respect between the two. Adelaide's intelligence, diplomatic skills, and ability to manage the complexities of the Sicilian court had been indispensable to Roger's success. Losing her was not just the loss of a wife, but also the loss of a trusted advisor who had played a crucial role in the kingdom's political and cultural achievements. Roger had come to rely on Adelaide's wisdom and counsel. Her ability to manage the diverse factions within Sicily, to maintain peace with the Byzantine Empire, and to promote cultural unity had been essential to the kingdom's stability. Without her by his side, Roger was forced to grapple with the weight of ruling a fragmented and multi-ethnic kingdom, now facing greater internal and external pressures. The grief that Roger felt after Adelaide's death was palpable, and it affected his ability to govern effectively in the years that followed. Although he remained an active ruler, the emotional toll of losing his wife, combined with the pressures of maintaining control over the kingdom, led to a period of increasing instability. Roger's ability to navigate the complexities of Sicilian politics became more difficult without the stabilizing influence of Adelaide. The political impact of Adelaide's death. In the immediate aftermath of Adelaide's death, the court of Roger II was in disarray. The loss of the queen consort left a power vacuum, and many of the court's key figures struggled to fill the role that Adelaide had so effectively occupied. The absence of her diplomatic acumen and cultural vision was particularly felt in the realm of governance. Roger's focus had always been on territorial expansion and military conquest, but Adelaide had been the steady hand behind the throne, ensuring that the internal affairs of the kingdom ran smoothly. With her gone, the kingdom began to experience internal strife. The various factions that had been kept in check by Adelaide's diplomatic skills began to assert themselves more aggressively. The Norman nobility, who had once been united under Roger's banner, began to fracture as they sought to increase their own power. The Muslim population, which had been relatively peaceful under Roger and Adelaide's reign, became more restive as tensions between the Christian and Muslim communities grew. The Byzantine Empire, ever watchful of Sicily's growing power, seized upon the instability to attempt to reassert influence over the island. Roger's ability to keep these factions in check, particularly in the absence of Adelaide's mediation, became more difficult. His military campaigns, which had been successful in the past, now faced greater resistance from both within and outside the kingdom. The loss of his wife's counsel, combined with the growing challenges within his court, created a period of uncertainty for Sicily. Cultural and intellectual legacy. While Adelaide's death had a profound impact on the political stability of the kingdom, her cultural and intellectual legacy endured. As queen consort, Adelaide had been a patron of the arts and a champion of religious tolerance and intellectual exchange. Under her guidance, Sicily had become a thriving center of learning, a crossroads of cultures, where scholars, artists, and poets from different traditions could come together. This intellectual vibrancy did not vanish with her passing. In fact, it continued to flourish in the years that followed. The court of Roger II, although facing political challenges, remained a hub of cultural activity. The translation of classical works into Latin and Arabic continued, and the blending of Norman, Byzantine, and Islamic artistic traditions continued to define the kingdom's unique cultural identity. The legacy of Adelaide's support for the arts and intellectual life was carried forward by those who had been influenced by her vision. Adelaide's commitment to religious tolerance, too, left a lasting impact on Sicily. Although the kingdom would eventually face more intense religious conflicts, the policies of inclusion and mutual respect that Adelaide had championed laid the groundwork for a relatively harmonious coexistence between the island's Christian, Muslim, and Jewish populations. Roger's legacy without Adelaide. Roger II would continue to rule Sicily for another decade after Adelaide's death, but his reign would never be the same. Without her by his side, the political and cultural unity that had characterized their earlier years began to unravel. Despite his military successes, the kingdom became increasingly difficult to govern, and the internal divisions that had been kept at bay by Adelaide's diplomacy began to surface. However, Roger's legacy would not be diminished entirely by his personal loss. The kingdom of Sicily that he and Adelaide had built was strong and resilient, and their achievements would continue to shape the course of history. The cultural and architectural projects that they had initiated, including the Palatine Chapel and the royal palaces, would endure as symbols of their shared vision for Sicily. Roger's reign, though marked by difficulties after Adelaide's death, would be remembered as the beginning of a golden age for Sicily. And in the years that followed, Adelaide's memory would live on as the queen who had helped to shape the cultural and political landscape of one of the most diverse and powerful kingdoms in medieval Europe. Adelaide's enduring legacy. Adelaide of Normandy's influence on the kingdom of Sicily transcended her death. Her contributions to the cultural, intellectual, and political life of the kingdom were immense, and her legacy would be felt for generations. The peaceful coexistence she fostered between the various peoples of Sicily, her patronage of the arts, and her vision for a united and prosperous kingdom all contributed to the lasting impact of her reign. Her death marked the end of an era, but the kingdom she had helped to build would continue to thrive. In the end, Adelaide's life and legacy would be remembered as a testament to the power of diplomacy, culture, and vision in the shaping of a nation. Though Adelaide of Normandy passed away in 1118, her political legacy endured long after her death. As the queen consort of Roger II, Adelaide had been more than just a symbolic figure. She had played an active and essential role in the governance of Sicily. Her strategic alliances, diplomatic skills, and ability to manage the complex relationships between the diverse peoples of the kingdom had been key to the stability of the realm. Her contributions to the unification of Sicily, both politically and culturally, continued to shape the trajectory of the kingdom long after her passing. A kingdom built on unity, One of Adelaide's greatest achievements as queen consort was her role in fostering unity among the different factions within Sicily. Under her influence, the kingdom became a model of religious and cultural coexistence, where Norman, Muslim, Byzantine, and Christian communities lived and worked together. This was no easy feat, as Sicily had long been a crossroads of various civilizations, each with its own culture, religion, and political agenda. However, Adelaide's diplomatic efforts and commitment to peace helped to maintain a delicate balance of power, preventing open conflict between the island's diverse communities. Her policies of religious tolerance, which allowed Muslims, Jews, and Christians to practice their faiths with relative freedom, were particularly important. In a time when religious strife often led to violence and division, Adelaide's ability to keep the peace between these groups was a remarkable accomplishment. Her success in this area provided a foundation for Roger II's future rule, and her vision for a pluralistic society would influence the course of Sicilian history for generations to come. While her death was a blow to Roger II's rule, the institutions and policies she helped to establish remained in place. The political system she helped to build, one that balanced the interests of various groups while maintaining centralized authority, continued to serve the kingdom after her passing. Roger, though weakened by the loss of his wife, was able to rely on the framework they had created together to maintain control over Sicily. Roger II's continued rule and expansion. Although Roger II faced new challenges after Adelaide's death, he was able to continue his reign for another decade, largely due to the political structures and alliances they had built together. With Adelaide's diplomatic influence no longer available to him, Roger had to take a more direct approach in managing the kingdom's internal and external relations. While his military conquests continued to expand the reach of Sicily, most notably in North Africa and the southern Italian mainland, the kingdom also faced internal difficulties as the various factions within Sicily began to reassert their power. Without Adelaide's steady hand, Roger faced growing resistance from local rulers, including some of the Norman barons who had grown accustomed to a more decentralized form of rule. Her ability to keep these factions in check had been key to Roger's earlier success, and without her influence, tensions within the court escalated. However, Roger's military prowess and political acumen allowed him to retain control of Sicily for the duration of his reign. Though his rule became more difficult without Adelaide's assistance, he was able to maintain the kingdom's strength and stability, largely due to the institutional legacy she had helped establish. The centralization of power that Roger II had worked to achieve, with Adelaide's help, would become a hallmark of his reign. The court of Palermo continued to be a powerful political center, attracting scholars, artists, and diplomats from all over the Mediterranean. Under Roger's rule, Sicily became one of the wealthiest and most culturally advanced kingdoms in Europe. Though Adelaide was no longer present to guide these efforts, her influence remained deeply ingrained in the kingdom's policies and institutions. Adelaide's role in strengthening the Norman dynasty. Adelaide's role in strengthening the Norman dynasty was equally significant. By marrying Roger II, she had forged an alliance between the powerful English and Norman families, which provided Roger with much-needed legitimacy. This marriage helped secure his claim to the throne of Sicily, as it linked his rule with the influential English monarchy. The political weight of her family's support had been a cornerstone of Roger's early success, and it continued to resonate in the later years of his reign. Adelaide's death, however, left a gap in the court's political alliances. While Roger II continued to enjoy the support of the English crown, the loss of his wife's direct diplomatic influence made it more difficult to manage the delicate balance of power in the Mediterranean. Despite this, the political legacy of their union endured, and the ties between Sicily and England remained strong. Throughout Roger's reign, Roger's children, too, would benefit from the alliances formed during Adelaide's reign. Her children, particularly those who would inherit positions of power, were raised in a kingdom that had been shaped by her vision. The foundations she laid in terms of governance, diplomacy, and cultural unity were passed down to the next generation of Sicilian rulers. The enduring legacy of religious tolerance. Perhaps one of Adelaide's most enduring legacies was her commitment to religious tolerance. At a time when much of Europe was embroiled in religious wars and persecutions, Adelaide stood out for her inclusive approach to governance. Her policies toward the Muslim and Jewish communities in Sicily were progressive and pragmatic, and they contributed to the kingdom's relative peace and stability. Although her death marked the end of an era of religious harmony in the court, the principles she had established continued to guide the governance of Sicily. Roger II, though not as overtly focused on religious tolerance as his wife had been, continued to maintain a relatively inclusive policy toward the various faiths within the kingdom. This legacy of peaceful coexistence was a defining feature of the early years of Roger II's reign and remained an important part of the kingdom's identity. In the centuries that followed, the religious tolerance fostered by Adelaide would become a point of pride for those who viewed the kingdom of Sicily as a place where different cultures could live together in harmony. While later rulers might not have upheld the same level of inclusivity, Adelaide's vision for a multicultural and religiously tolerant Sicily left an indelible mark on the island's history. The political and cultural impact on future generations. Adelaide's political and cultural impact would be felt for generations after her death. Her work in promoting the arts, intellectual exchange, and religious tolerance helped to lay the groundwork for the intellectual and cultural flowering of Sicily in the Middle Ages. Under Roger II and his successors, Sicily would remain a center of learning, where scholars from various backgrounds could come together to exchange ideas and preserve knowledge. The libraries, the courts, and the scholarly institutions that Adelaide helped to cultivate would continue to influence the Mediterranean world long after her passing. Moreover, Adelaide's role in shaping Sicily as a bridge between East and West would have lasting consequences for the region's future. Her efforts to unify the diverse peoples of the island, Muslims, Christians, Byzantines, and Jews, served as a model for future rulers in the Mediterranean. While the political unity she helped to establish would not last indefinitely, the cultural and intellectual legacy she left behind would continue to be a source of pride for the people of Sicily. Conclusion: a legacy of stability and unity. Adelaide of Normandy's legacy is one of stability, unity, and cultural flourishing. As queen consort to Roger II, she played an integral role in the creation of a kingdom that balanced military conquest with cultural and intellectual achievement. Her diplomatic skill, her commitment to religious tolerance, and her dedication to fostering a unified society helped to shape the course of Sicilian history. Though her death marked the end of an era for Roger II and the kingdom, her contributions to the kingdom's success endured. The political structures she helped to establish, the alliances she forged, and the cultural renaissance she nurtured continued to influence Sicily long after her passing. Adelaide's vision of a unified, prosperous, and culturally rich kingdom became a lasting part of the legacy of Roger II's reign, ensuring that her impact would be felt for generations to come. Adelaide of Normandy's place in history is, in many ways, defined by her remarkable ability to bridge the cultural, political, and religious divides of 12th century Sicily. While her name may not be as widely known as other queens or monarchs of the medieval period, her impact on the Kingdom of Sicily and its legacy is undeniable. As the wife of Roger II, the first king of Sicily, and as a queen consort who played a central role in his reign, Adelaide left a lasting mark on the political, cultural, and intellectual landscape of the Mediterranean world. Her legacy, though not as widely celebrated in popular history as that of her husband, was instrumental in the creation of one of the most culturally rich and politically stable kingdoms of medieval Europe. From her work in fostering religious tolerance and political unity to her support for the arts and intellectual pursuits, Adelaide's contributions were foundational to the success and prosperity of Roger II's reign. A queen who shaped the cultural landscape. Adelaide's influence on the cultural and intellectual life of Sicily during Roger II's reign is perhaps the most enduring aspect of her legacy. Under her patronage, Sicily became a thriving center of learning, arts, and religious tolerance. The fusion of Norman, Byzantine, Arab, and Latin influences created a unique cultural environment that was reflected in the court's architecture, literature, and scholarship. One of the most lasting symbols of Adelaide's cultural impact is the Palatine Chapel in Palermo. Commissioned by Roger II and heavily influenced by Adelaide's vision, the chapel remains a masterpiece of medieval architecture, where the artistic traditions of three distinct cultures, Norman, Byzantine, and Islamic, are seamlessly blended. This fusion of artistic traditions, symbolic of Adelaide's vision for a united and harmonious Sicily, stands as a testament to her ability to bring together the diverse peoples of the kingdom. In addition to the chapel, Adelaide supported the translation of classical and Islamic texts into Latin, fostering an intellectual environment that allowed the cross-pollination of ideas. The Sicilian court, under her influence, became a place where scholars from different cultures and backgrounds came together to share knowledge. This intellectual flourishing would later contribute to the broader European Renaissance, as ideas and texts preserved in Sicily were eventually disseminated throughout Europe. Adelaide's commitment to the arts and learning, particularly through her role as a patron of literature, architecture, and scholarship, left an indelible mark on Sicily. Her support helped to create a kingdom where intellectual exchange and cultural innovation thrived, and her legacy as a patron of the arts has been remembered as one of her greatest achievements. The Queen who fostered religious tolerance. Adelaide's role in promoting religious tolerance within Sicily is another key aspect of her legacy. At a time when religious conflicts often led to division and violence, particularly between Christians and Muslims, Adelaide's policies of inclusivity were groundbreaking. While Roger II's reign was marked by his military victories and territorial expansions, it was Adelaide's influence in matters of governance and diplomacy that ensured peace between the island's various religious communities. Adelaide's policy of religious tolerance allowed the Muslim population of Sicily to maintain their faith and cultural practices even after the Norman conquest. She also worked to ensure that the Jewish and Christian populations coexisted peacefully within the kingdom. Her diplomatic efforts in maintaining religious harmony were not only important for the stability of Sicily, but also set a precedent for future rulers in the Mediterranean world. Adelaide's religious tolerance extended beyond mere political necessity. She believed that the kingdom's strength lay in its diversity, and she worked tirelessly to ensure that each community had a voice and a place within the realm. Her commitment to peaceful coexistence allowed Sicily to become a model of religious pluralism in medieval Europe. The Queen who unified a diverse kingdom. Perhaps Adelaide's greatest political achievement was her ability to unify the diverse peoples of Sicily under a single banner. The island, once divided between Muslim, Christian, and Byzantine factions, had long been a place of political fragmentation and conflict. Through her diplomatic efforts, Adelaide played a crucial role in ensuring that these factions could live together in harmony, helping to create a kingdom that was both powerful and culturally diverse. Adelaide's marriage to Roger II, a union that bridged the gap between the English and Norman dynasties, was instrumental in solidifying the legitimacy of Norman rule in Sicily. Her influence within the court and her diplomatic skills helped Roger navigate the complex political landscape of southern Italy, where competing powers and factions sought control. Adelaide's ability to mediate between the various communities within Sicily helped ensure that Roger II's reign was marked by stability, rather than internal strife. In addition to her efforts within Sicily, Adelaide's marriage to Roger II forged important political alliances that would benefit the kingdom in the years to come. Her connections to the English royal family strengthened Sicily's ties to northern Europe, ensuring that the kingdom would remain a key player in Mediterranean politics. Adelaide in the historical record. Despite her central role in the success of Roger II's reign, Adelaide of Normandy has often been overshadowed by her more famous husband. However, modern historians are increasingly recognizing her pivotal contributions to the kingdom's success and to the cultural and political achievements of Sicily during the 12th century. While her name may not be as well known as other queens of the medieval period, her legacy is undeniable. Adelaide's diplomatic and cultural contributions were critical to the long-term success of Roger II's rule. Her ability to maintain peace between the various factions within Sicily, her promotion of religious tolerance, and her patronage of the arts helped to create a kingdom that was not only militarily powerful, but also intellectually and culturally vibrant. Her role as a queen consort, advisor, and cultural patron has earned her a place in history as one of the most influential women of her time. A queen ahead of her time. Adelaide's life and legacy reflect a remarkable combination of intelligence, political acumen, cultural vision, and diplomacy. As a queen consort, she was not a passive figurehead but a powerful force in the governance of Sicily. Her ability to navigate the complexities of medieval politics, build alliances, and foster cultural exchange set her apart as one of the most influential queens in European history. Her legacy, however, was not without its challenges. Her marriage to Roger II, while politically advantageous, was not always harmonious, and her efforts to balance her roles as queen consort, cultural patron, and political advisor often placed her in difficult positions. Yet, despite these challenges, Adelaide's impact on the Kingdom of Sicily and on the history of medieval Europe cannot be overstated. A legacy that endures. The legacy of Adelaide of Normandy endures not just in the physical structures and intellectual achievements of Sicily, but in the very spirit of the kingdom that she helped to build. Her contributions to the unification of Sicily, the promotion of religious tolerance, and the flourishing of the arts and scholarship have left a lasting imprint on the island and on the broader Mediterranean world. Adelaide's memory is now being rediscovered as historians and scholars recognize the important role she played in shaping the course of Sicilian and European history. She may have been overshadowed by her husband, Roger II, but her vision for Sicily as a place of cultural exchange, religious tolerance, and political unity has endured for centuries, and her legacy continues to inspire those who study the history of medieval Europe. The reign of Roger II of Sicily is often remembered as one of the most significant periods in the history of the Mediterranean. His military conquests, his ability to consolidate a diverse kingdom, and his ambitious expansionist goals have ensured his place in the annals of history. However, the foundation for his success was built not only through his own efforts but also through the tireless work of his wife, Adelaide of Normandy. As queen consort, Adelaide played an indispensable role in shaping the political, cultural, and intellectual legacy of Sicily, an impact that would be felt long after her untimely death in 1118. Adelaide's contributions were profound, yet they often went unrecognized during her lifetime and for centuries after. In the historical record, she was often overshadowed by her more famous husband. But as time passes and the complexities of their shared rule are more thoroughly understood, Adelaide's pivotal role in creating the Kingdom of Sicily and in promoting peace, tolerance, and intellectual exchange has come into clearer focus. The legacy of unity and tolerance. Adelaide's greatest political achievement was her ability to unify the diverse peoples of Sicily under a single, coherent realm. The island, rich with a complex tapestry of Christian, Muslim, Byzantine, and native Sicilian communities, had long been a place of political fragmentation and religious tension. When Roger II and Adelaide ascended to the throne, the need for unity was clear. Adelaide's policies of religious tolerance, diplomatic skill, and her efforts to maintain a balanced approach to governance helped to ensure that these communities could live side by side, each preserving their unique cultures and beliefs while contributing to the greater strength of the kingdom. Sicily under Roger II, with Adelaide's influence, became a shining example of religious pluralism in medieval Europe. Despite the tensions and conflicts that marred much of the continent, Sicily stood as a place where Muslims, Christians, and Jews could not only coexist but thrive. It was under Adelaide's guiding hand that religious tolerance was not merely a political tool, but a value ingrained in the kingdom's identity. This peace, however fragile, was something unprecedented in much of medieval Europe, and it was a direct result of Adelaide's thoughtful and deliberate efforts to foster understanding between the kingdom's various religious and cultural factions. The cultural renaissance of Sicily. In addition to her political achievements, Adelaide's contributions to the cultural and intellectual life of Sicily are equally significant. Under her patronage, Sicily became one of the leading cultural centers of the Mediterranean. The kingdom's court, situated in the cosmopolitan city of Palermo, became a place where intellectuals, artists, and scholars from various traditions could gather to exchange ideas, share knowledge, and learn from one another. Adelaide's commitment to education and the arts was reflected in her support for the translation of classical, Arabic, and Byzantine texts into Latin. This intellectual exchange not only preserved knowledge that would otherwise have been lost, but also laid the foundation for the later European Renaissance. The scholarly activities and artistic projects that she promoted fostered a cultural climate that encouraged creativity and innovation. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo, with its stunning mosaics that blend Christian and Islamic artistic traditions, stands as a testament to Adelaide's vision of a Sicily where cultures could coexist and contribute to a greater whole. The court of Roger II, supported by Adelaide's vision and patronage, became a beacon of cultural and intellectual vibrancy in an otherwise turbulent medieval Europe. Through Adelaide's efforts, Sicily became a place where East met West, and diverse traditions were woven together into a unique and lasting cultural fabric. This blending of artistic traditions would continue to influence the region for centuries, contributing to the cultural development of the Mediterranean. The political and diplomatic foundations. Though her marriage to Roger II was politically advantageous, Adelaide's true genius lay in her ability to use her position to strengthen Roger's rule through diplomacy and strategic alliances. In a time when marriage was often used as a political tool, Adelaide proved to be a shrewd and capable partner who understood the importance of maintaining and building relationships with foreign powers. Her connections to the English royal family, her strong sense of diplomacy, and her understanding of court politics allowed her to help Roger secure his rule over Sicily, even in the face of external challenges. Adelaide's influence in diplomacy was crucial during the early years of Roger II's reign, particularly as Roger sought to consolidate his power. She played an instrumental role in managing relationships with both the Byzantine Empire, which still retained influence in parts of southern Italy, and the Muslim powers of North Africa. Her diplomatic efforts helped ensure that Sicily remained a strong and independent kingdom, able to withstand external pressures from both the East and the West. The unseen strength behind the throne. While Roger II was the face of the kingdom, leading military campaigns and asserting his dominance over the Mediterranean, it was often Adelaide who worked behind the scenes to ensure the stability and internal cohesion of the realm. Her efforts in managing the kingdom's affairs, keeping the peace among Sicily's diverse population, and promoting cultural and intellectual life were essential to the kingdom's success. She did not seek the limelight. Rather, her role as a behind-the-scenes advisor and mediator was what made her contributions so significant. In the years following her death, Roger II continued to rule Sicily, but the kingdom never fully recovered from the loss of the queen consort who had played such a vital role in its creation. The political unity and cultural vibrancy that Adelaide had fostered began to falter in her absence. Roger's military conquests continued, but the internal stability of the kingdom became more difficult to maintain without Adelaide's presence. Her death marked the end of an era, but the foundations she had laid for Sicily endured, even as the kingdom began to face new challenges in the years to come. Adelaide's enduring memory. Although Adelaide of Normandy did not live to see the full scope of the kingdom she helped to build, her legacy remains deeply embedded in the history of Sicily and the broader Mediterranean world. Her contributions as a queen consort, her political acumen, her cultural patronage, and her diplomatic efforts set the stage for Roger II's success and the long-lasting influence of the Norman Kingdom of Sicily. Today, the works of art, architecture, and scholarship that flourished under Roger II's reign are a testament to the vision and leadership of Adelaide. The Palatine Chapel, the libraries, the intellectual circles that she helped foster. These are the enduring markers of her impact. She may not have been as famous as her husband, but her legacy stands as a beacon of what a queen consort can achieve, not only in terms of political power but in shaping the cultural and intellectual life of a kingdom. Adelaide of Normandy, though often overshadowed by the grandeur of her husband's achievements, remains one of the most remarkable and influential women in medieval history. Her legacy, in the peace she brokered, the culture she promoted, and the kingdom she helped to create, continues to be remembered and celebrated in Sicily and beyond.